والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala will talk briefly about the fourth story mentioned in Surat Al-Kahf, which is the story of Dhul Qarnayn. And we talk very briefly about the first three stories in the surah. The main one that the surah is named after is the story of the people of Al-Kahf, the cave. And after that, Sahib al-Jannatayn, the man with the two gardens. And then the story of Musa alayhi salam and Al-Khaf. And the last one is Dhul Qarnayn. And as we heard before, that the surah is about the fitan and the trials that a human being would face, especially for those who are the believers. They have to go through these trials and fitan, and it's one after the other. Even some of the ulama, they said it can be even in this order for nations, for individuals. The first fitna is the fitna to one's deen. When people embrace the truth, they are tested with regards to their deen, and they go through so much of a struggle, as the Prophet ﷺ did with the companions in Mecca and so on. So the fitna comes first with matters of the deen, to see who's patient and who's not, and for the believers to be elevated in the levels of the ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, strengthening their imans. No tamkeen or no establishment on earth unless there is ibtila and test and trials that comes first. It doesn't work at ease like this. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created things. So the fitna of the deen comes first. If a person passes the fitna of the deen with strength of one's iman and he is holding fast to his religion, then there is the fitna of al-mal, or the wealth, or the materialistic things, in the story of the person with the two gardens, and to refer everything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to see things as means and not goals, the materialistic things in this life, that there are certain acts of worship to be observed, and we talked about that. And then after that is the fitna of knowledge in the story of Musa and Khadr. And we did not cover all the benefits that we learned from the story, but great benefits, and it's something that we should take it upon ourselves that we expand on it. It's a series actually of lectures if we give it its rights, from all sorts of things, matters of knowledge and etiquettes and traveling and all kinds of things. But one of the things that Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, before we get into the story of Dhul Qarnayn, the last benefit that he mentioned, and we did not cover all of them, but the last one I would like to read to you 3 lines, but it's very important for us to take this from the story of Musa and Khadr, and it's linked to what's after that, the story of Dhul Qarnayn. He said, أن من هذه الفوائد أن هذه القضايا التي أجراها الخضر هي قدر محض أجراها الله وجعلها على يد هذا العبد الصالح. Whatever the Khadr did, this was from the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pure qadr and decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this righteous person, Al-Khadr, to be the means to execute it. Although anyway, this is how even the qadr of Allah people would see without having a human being to do it. A child dies, many children they die. A ship owned by good people, and there are poor people, they work hard, and the ship, something breaks in it. This is valid to happen without having a man to interfere and to do it. And the same thing with the wall underneath, which is the treasure of the orphans. Something can happen that even the people of the village, those who are greedy, they will find something that would make them erect the wall. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He decrees a matter, He would make the asbab and the means to it so easy. And He would even force the disbelievers to fulfill the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So إذا قدر الله عز وجل شيئا هيأ أسبابه. فالله سبحانه وتعالى decree a matter, the means it's done. And even to the extent of which that the disbelievers, as we said, they will be even means to bring victory to the deen of Islam. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decree for something to happen, as the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْصُرُ هَذَا الدِّينَ بِالرَّجُلِ الْفَاجِرِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might give victory to this deen by an evil person. How is that? To make him act foolishly, for example. To make him be the trigger that makes people hold fast to their deen. Like the story of the boy and the king, when the king claimed to be the Lord of the Alameen, and he was the reason with his foolishness, but it's all by the qadr of Allah, that the whole town became believers when he followed what the boy instructed him to do. So this is the amazing qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are matters of qadr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, but in this story, the Al-Khaf, he was one of the means of establishing and executing this qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not permissible for individuals to do that, of course, but this was a special case. This is wahy, revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the benefit of it, as he mentioned this here, لِيَسْتَدِلَّ الْعِبَادُ بِذَلِكَ عَلَى أَلْطَافِهِ فِي أَقْضِيَتِهِ. Why is this happened in the story of Al-Khaf? So that people will take this as an evidence to witness the Al-Taf, the hidden mercy and goodness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all of the affairs and all of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of his names is Al-Latif. And Al-Lutf is when something done in a very delicate and a very light way. Nobody would feel it. That would lead to something. Right? Something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, which is something very major. For that to happen, people do not see that this is going this direction. You know, it's very easy, very simple. I want to go from point A to the end of the masjid. I will go straight this way. If I'm going this way, people won't take as an evidence from what I'm doing that I want to go out to the masjid. I'm just going this way. Right? So the Al-Taf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in such a way that people, while the matter is getting closer and closer to what Allah decreed, they have no idea that it's going this direction. So it's all hidden from them. And this is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It would make Fir'aun, the one that's going after all the children of Bani Israel to kill them, he is the one to raise Musa alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have made Musa alayhi salam raised by someone else, and he comes and destroys Fir'aun. No, Fir'aun himself will raise him. This is the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that when we recite these stories, because we are the ones that are meant by these stories, as we heard before, the statement of Umar, radiallahu anhu, مَضَى الْقَوْمِ وَلَمْ يُرَدْ بِهِ أَحَدٌ سِوَى. The people, they left, they died. All of them, all of the people in these stories, they passed away. Who are meant by these stories? It's ourselves. When we recite it, it's not about tariq or history, and that's why there's no many names and all of these things. The Quran brings these stories for people to take the lesson, because the matter is repeated. It's always repeated. This is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the believers then, as a result of that, they would witness the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if they don't see where is that going. But the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala definitely is true, and the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. And then he says, وَأَنَّهُ أَنَّ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى يُقَدِّرُ عَلَى الْعَبْدِ أُمُورًا يَكْرَهُهَا جِدًّا. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would decree sometimes certain matters on the slave of Allah, something that he hates it so much. If you put yourself in the situation of the parents that their child was killed, this is a calamity to them. So something that they hate so much, something that, this is the natural thing for the human beings. So this is the case, وَهِيَ صَلَاحُ دِينِ. And this thing that the person might hate so much might be what is best for his religion, as in the يقول كما في قضية الغلام, as in the situation of the young boy. This was because of what's coming ahead. If the unseen is lifted and they can see what's beyond, and these parents would see that if that child grows up and he becomes a miserable thing for them and they would lose their religion, it's not that maybe the parents, they won't mind for even the children to make them lose their money, to make their life miserable, livelihood-wise, right? They would still care for the life of their children. But when they see that maybe that child will be the reason for them to go to the hellfire forever, right? So at the end, in the day of judgment, for example, would love for that child to be their child? Of course not, right? So the unseen is not lifted, they cannot see the unseen, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So this is for something that a person might hate so much, but then it brings all means of goodness in one's deed. وهي صلاح دنياه كما في قضية السفينة, or the goodness of his livelihood, like the issue of the ship. It was good for their livelihood. The ship was saved, right? Although some harm happened to it, but it's better than the whole ship to be taken away. So even the betterment of one's dunya, one's worldly and livelihood matters. Also something happens that they hate so much, but it leads to what is good. فَأَرَاهُمْ نَمُوذَةً مِنْ لُطْفِهِ وَكَرَمِهِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us, when we look at this, witness an example of the lutf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His generosity. So that when you see the story from the beginning or the end, then what is the benefit? That most people are away from this. On something that you hate so much, or you hate that much, or it doesn't matter, something that you don't like, happens to you, you remember these things. That if Allah decreed it, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made this the qadr because it happened, that means there's a great wisdom behind it. Not just a small wisdom, because it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most wise, Al-Hakim, Al-Latif subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then the human being, instead of being busy, terrified and sad and so on, you need to witness the hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what's that leading to, and what act of worship that a person should do, and not to have bad expectations of Allah. This is on an individual level and also in the whole entire ummah. When a person sees what's happening all over the world against the Muslimin, right? You would think this is not going anywhere, right? And you would lose hope and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Latif. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He decrees the matter, every single human being will be working and doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leading them to. The Muslim need to witness really that people are يساقون إلى ما قدره الله عز وجل. People are being dragged to the qadr of Allah. They think that they're smart and they can do things. Everything is by the qadr of Allah. So what the believers need to be, to outsmart all of them by being what? To deal with this life like others do, thinking that they're smart. No, follow the wahy. Follow the revelation from Allah. Humble yourself to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be patient. And do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you, and don't be in haste, because everything will be according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. So this is a very important point, that without this really a person is not benefiting from these stories. Then, right after that, the next verse actually, the last story, and inshallah I won't take too much of your time, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the last story of Dhul Qarnayn, and this is the fitna, or it refers to the fitna of al-mulk and kingdomship and authority and having power, right? So this is not a case of someone that is oppressed and weak. This is someone that has power, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him means to do all kinds of things by the will of Allah. And how and what's the best way to deal with the situation when a person has power, so that the ummah at all situations, at all levels, they have the knowledge of how to deal with things. So they also asked the Prophet ﷺ about Dhul Qarnayn, whether it's the Jews at the time of the Prophet ﷺ or the people of Quraysh. They told them to ask the Prophet ﷺ, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْهُ ذِكْرًا. They ask you about Dhul Qarnayn, say I shall recite to you something of his story, not the whole thing, something. Minhu dhikra, and that's what we need, as we said before. This is all what we need. We don't need the extra things. Who is Dhul Qarnayn? Is it Al-Iskandar al-Maqduni, or is this or that? What's the benefit of all of this? No benefit. Again, so anything of history, something happened in the past, you look at the books of history full of things that is of no benefit. People take PhDs and things, right? And when you see the Quran, we are only given what is benefiting, because what passed, it happened, it's finished. We just need to take the lesson. So every word of the story is meant to be that way for benefits. So to extract the benefits, and this is the work of the ulama, such a beautiful thing, and we would never be able to do it in a session, and still you can extract benefits day after another. And the Quran never is short of bringing these benefits. So it can be a starting point for us to ponder and to reflect more, to know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So the Prophet ﷺ, it was revealed to him. First of all, why is called Dhul Qarnayn? Ulama thought Al-Qarnayn, what is more likely to be what is correct, as the ulama they say, it's because of the east and the west. Like the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that الشمس تطلع بين قرني الشيطان, between it shows the spaciousness of his kingdom. So he was a very powerful person. إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that verily, إِنَّا مَكَّنَّا لَهُ, we established him in the earth. So this is the fitna of being established. And we gave him the means of everything. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا. Sababa is the means. So he was given the means to do whatever he wants in his power of being a king or someone in charge of people. Of course, in kulli shay, it doesn't mean the heavens and the earth, and because shay means anything and everything. Whatever is fit in the context, as the ulama they say, which being a king that is able to execute what he wants, as a king and a righteous one and so on. So he did not have any difficulties by the will of Allah, established by the real meaning of establishment. Not established as a decor, for example. Some people might think they're established when they're not established. No, he's been given the means. If he wants to do something, he will do it. And that's why a person has to witness what is his position. Is he established or he is oppressed and weak? You are established in your home, your household, you are in charge of it. For the men that are in charge of their household. So they have to make sure that what is right applies there. And he's not oppressed there. If he's oppressed, that means he needs to see what he's doing wrong, because he's supposed to be in charge. So and a person is in charge of his own self by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if he's weak, he's not in authority, then he has to be patient and to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then what is mandatory for those who are in charge is not mandatory for those who are not in charge. And this concept is very important to understand how to act and how to do things, and when to be patient and when to not. Even when a person is able, I'm sorry, taking things out, but I won't take too much time, inshallah ta'ala. It's a fiqh and the understanding of certain situations and how to deal with it. As Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah, when a man came to him and he told him that he wants to revenge from the one that oppressed him and committed so much dhulm and atrocities against him. So he said, "U'fu anhu, pardon him, فَإِنَّ بَابَ الْعَفْوِ وَاسِعٌ." The gate of pardoning is so wide and spacious. Why you want to be tight on revenge? Pardon, especially again, pardoning would brings benefit, would brings good, not the pardoning that makes a person humiliated. No, he has the power, he has the means to revenge, but he would choose to pardon, right? And it brings goodness, does not bring professional criminals, no, it brings goodness. So he said, "La astati', I can't," which is his right. In Islam, there is the level of justice that a person should not be blamed if he's asking for justice. But the higher level, if he pardons, if it brings good. So then he told him a very precise and beautiful statement that many people don't pay attention to it. He said, إِذَا كُنْتَ تُحْسِنُ الْإِنْتِصَارَ فَافْعَلْ. If you were able to be victorious in a good way, with tuhsin, with an ihsan, with goodness, if you're able to take your right and to apply justice, if you're able to apply justice that brings goodness, do so, right? Because a person, when he's revenging, is not really paying attention to what the outcome of his actions, right? So he might cause more dhulm and more oppression and more evil. And who would be able to establish the justice? Justice needs power and strength. Why? Because when you talk about justice, that means there's injustice, right? And the one that is committing injustice, he's already doing evil. When someone weak does not have any authority or power, come tell him, "Hey, apply justice." You think that evil person that is committing evil already will say, "Yeah, you're right. Let me apply justice." And he would say, "I'm forcing you. I'm going to raise my voice, that my voice will be so high that because of my loud voice, you listen to me." Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense. So al-adl or justice needs authority and power to establish it. What if a person doesn't have this power? Then be patient. Patient, is that a negative thing? No. Apply the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered you. Seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet ﷺ did in Mecca, and to even call and to advise, because you don't have authority. It's not about just being foolish or doing things that brings more harm. That's why people need to follow the people of knowledge. So if you're not able to, إذا كنت لا تحسن الانتصار فلا تفعل. If you're not able to do it in a good way, then he said to him, فَلْجَأْ إلى العفو فإن العفو باب واسع. If you're not able to apply it, then get into the level of pardoning and forgiveness and be of concern to others and so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Dhul Qarnayn all means of to establish with his authority whatever he wants. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. See, this is a separate ayah by itself. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا, which means so he followed a way. He followed the means. And sababan is mentioned in few verses in the story because there's significance here. Right? This is about the means and about taking the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. So he followed the means. He is someone of power, as we would see, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the means and he's taking the means. So individual levels, the ummah should take the means. People should take the means. And when a person sees that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him certain means, and these means are halal, they're not haram because it's not permissible to deal with the haram means. In your capacity, these means are there. That means it's there for a reason. That means a person should do the best he can to take these means because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the help will come. But if a person is lazy when he has the means, then there's no help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes to him. And each individual according to the means that Allah gave him. Someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the power and he gave him the means, فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Dhul Qarnayn was successful because he was taking the means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. Until when he reached the setting place of the sun, he kept on, his kingdom was so much and so vast on earth that it stretched all the way till where he cannot find any more land. Till when the land meets the sea and the sun would set in the water. That means he cannot go any more beyond this. And وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ, that he found the sun setting in a spring of black, muddy or hot water. That means he cannot go beyond because it's water. So he's established on the land. And this is with regards to whatever a person sees, this is what he describes. Right? Because some people, they use this verse to say the sun, the Quran is saying the sun is setting in the water. They thought that the earth is like a flat thing and the sun just immersed in the water and then comes back the other way. No, this is and this is very common in the sayings of the Arab, where a person describes what his eyes see. He's not describing the reality of things. Like, so if you see something, this is what you see. You might see from a distance a spider, but it's something else. This is what you see. So, and this is where the sun set, when it looks like the sun is setting. And this is that means he reached the end of the land and there's no more land afterwards. وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا, and he found there a group of people. قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. It was said to Dhul Qarnayn either to punish these people or to treat them with kindness. That means, as the ulama, they say from the context of the verse, as if these people are bad people. Because why would that statement be in such a way? They were doing evil, they were doing bad. So either you punish them or treat them with kindness. And he is given the power, he's established, right? And he's able to do both. So what did he say? قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. He said, as for him who does wrong, we shall punish him, and then he will be brought back unto his Lord, who will punish him with terrible torment. That means they were disbelievers and they transgressed, so they will be punished. And he's saying that when they return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the disbeliever, if he's punished, he would still return to the punishment, the real punishment in the hereafter. For the believers, if they're punished in this life with a crime that they did, that means there's no sin on them in the day of judgment, they won't be punished for it. So that means these people were disbelievers and they had these atrocities or crimes or whatever. So he will punish he would apply justice on them. And this is what a person of authority would do. And then they will return to the punishment of Allah, which shows the evilness of disbelief and shirk, which is the sin that is never forgiven if a person dies in that state before repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَمَّا مَنْ آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. But as for him who believes, آمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا, as for the one that believed, that did righteous good deeds, فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى. He shall have the best reward. فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى. And this is in the hereafter, he will have the best of the rewards. وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. And we, meaning the Qarnayn, shall speak unto him mild words, and like as if he will give him his instructions in a very nice way. Because people, those who are not criminals, you will need to deal with them with roughness. Right? If you are an authority, you tell them you have instructions, you have law that you have to follow in a nice way. And that's why when people fear punishments, they fear it because either it's unjust or the one executing it is unjust. So the people would feel this. But if justice is applied perfectly with what justice means, because justice is selective to some people, they apply it only to their people. He's very just, but when it comes to his people, his race maybe, the people of his religion only, the people in one country only, and actually people, if they apply justice in one country, in that country, they're considered to be very just. But once it belongs to someone else, they forget about all the means of justice. And people would justify that. They would think justice is only for the people like you. In Islam, the deen of Islam, there is no condition, and take it as a rule, there is no case whatsoever where it's permissible to do injustice. There is no way whatsoever. The minimum that people can go down to is justice. Nothing beyond justice. Even against the worst of the enemies and the worst people ever is to apply justice. Not to apply anything else but justice. This is the deen of Islam. Human beings, they do evil things, but this is what the deen of Islam. That's why even when a person is dealt with so much injustice, the normal reaction of this human being is to respond with injustice. If he has the means, they will deal with injustice. A person, for example, going to insult someone and curse him so bad, and that person gets angry, he goes in, he burns his house, or he kills him. Right? This is injustice opposed by worse injustice, or even to oppose the insult with insult. So the deen of Islam only brings what is just. The wrongdoer is to be held accountable for his actions, as the Qarnayn said, and that's why those who would hate to have punishment, justice for those who are wrongdoers are basically wrongdoers. If it's justice, why do you fear anything? If you're a righteous person, if you don't steal, why would a person then fear the punishment of being a thief? If the matter is dealt with justice, that means not people will be taken just by no reasons or evidences and so on. So again, this is a subject by itself. Right? The Al-Qarnayn, he mentioned it in two simple statements to show the work of those who are in charge. And those who believed and did righteous deeds, فَلَهُ جَزَاءً الْحُسْنَى وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. We will say lenient thing to him. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Again, it's repeated. Then he followed another way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what is this way. He's able to go to the far east that he can go, and then he goes to the far west that he can go, and all of this is means of establishment. Allah knows best. Fairy tales, we're not going to get to it. The ayat does not mention it, and we don't need to know. It's enough that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that he's been given means to do whatever he wants to do in establishing his mulk and his kingdom with justice, with goodness, and he is following these means. He's taken the means, and that's significant for us to learn. حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل له من دنيا سترا. So when he went all the way till he cannot go anymore, there's no more land, then he went to the other way until when he came to the rising place of the sun. So it's all the way to the east. And they used to, as some of the ulama, they said, they used to go to the east and the west, right? Not usually to the north and the south, because usually north and south is cold, and livelihood is not as when it's east to the west, but still everywhere. So he went all the way where also the land, as far as the land can take him. He found it rising on a people for whom we, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, had provided no shelter against the sun. لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُم مِّن دُنْيَا سِتْرًا. They were people of just living in the wilderness. They're not having any shelters or anything like this. كَذَلِكَ وَقَدْ أَحَاطْنَا بِمَا لَدَيْهِ خُبَرًا. So it was and we know all about him, Dhul Qarnayn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things and he's all-watcher. So he established all over the land. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا, then he followed another way. Again, it's repeated, right? So then we get to know what's the greatest benefit here that we hear from the story, right? He's following the means. He's taking the means that in his capacity and in his case was something very powerful. حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا, until when he reached between السدين, two mountains or two blocking places, which is here in this case two mountains. He found before, near them, those two mountains, people who scarcely understood a word. حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما. Just before he got there, he found people لا يكادون يفقهون قولا, they're barely understanding speech, they don't understand things. Or another recitation which is from the qira'at, لا يكادون يفقهون قولا, they are not understood, they don't understand people and they are not understood when they speak. So people of different language, they're, and these are that he found them there. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. They said, O Dhul Qarnayn, verily Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog, are doing great mischief in the land. Shall we then pay you a tribute in order that you might erect a barrier between us and them? If they cannot understand and nobody can understand them, or so, قالوا, they said. So how was the communication? This goes to فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him means, right? So we don't need to get into this. How did they say this to him when they're, as the ayat says, nobody can understand them? Someone that is given means, as some of them said, he will not have any translators, for example. He would not have any means to understand. Allah will give him means. People even have sign languages and all kinds of things. So al-qawl, qalu, doesn't have to be with the tongue, speech. Right? Things can be said if a person is using sign language to speak. Can you say that this person said? Yes. In the Arabic language you say yes. He said such and such and he didn't say a word. It was sign language. So this is still qawl, this is still a speech. So they said to him, Ya Dhal Qarnayn, Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, two nations, this huge nation, mufsiduna fil ard. They are destructive on earth, committing mischief. And al-fasad, or mischief and corruption on earth, it brings all kinds of mischief. Whether it's against the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is fasad fil ard, when people disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this will be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when a person committing a sin in his room and nobody sees him except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's doing mischief on the earth, because this sin affects the communities in his household, right, and the community that he's in. Even masajid, people would find in the masjid, people are fighting with each other and so much problems. And they sit together and they don't understand why this is happening, why Muslimin are, these things in the masajid and so on. A sin committed 100 miles away can have an effect on people when they get together. This is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. The believers are brothers. Meaning what? That if they are believers, brotherhood comes as a natural way being believers. Do they have to work too much of being brothers, or they work more on being believers? Right? If they work to be brothers, they will never attain it, if they're not working on their iman. If they're working on their iman individually, and they complete their iman, they will be brothers, because this is what an iman would lead the person. Right? So this is the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and also the fasad is to deal with others in a corrupted way. So they were mufsiduna fil ard. So they asked Dhul Qarnayn, فهل, because they see the power that Dhul Qarnayn he has, فهل نجعل لك خرجا. And this is, they don't know him very well. Someone with this authority and this power, he will wait for some tribute or some reward from them. So that, but they said, because they were afraid that he won't accept to do this favor to them. So can we please give you something? A tribute or a gift or something, so that you would make between us and them, set a barrier between us and them, because they're so evil. قال ما مكنني فيه ربي خير فَأَعِنُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. He said, مَا مَكَّنِّي فِيهِ رَبِّي خَيْرٌ. That what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my Lord, had established me, which is the wealth and the power and the means, that we don't know actually the reality of it. All of these means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, is saying, is better than your tribute. And want nothing from you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me the means, but He wants something from them. So help me with strength of men. I will erect between you and them a barrier. So He wants them to be part of the help. He will get them to work it. He won't do it on his own. He wants them to help him, which also has a great benefit in which the person in authority will have the ability. He has the ability to get to people to work whatever they can do. Some people, they don't understand things, they're not very smart maybe, but they can do physical things. You tell them carry this, he will carry it, right? Put this here, he will put that there. And that does not belittle the person. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created people differently. But if everybody wants to be leaders, right, like many of us, we would like to do that, actually it's a bad thing to like it. And a Muslim should push away from his heart that he wants to be a leader. This is something to be given. There is one leader that would lead a nation. Imagine the whole nation is fighting to be leaders, and there's only one. So what makes sense is when people fight for leadership, this is all not correct and not sound systems. When people are given the ability to be in leadership, but it's only one person or few people that would fit, and the rest of the people, what they're busy, they want to be leaders. Or what's wise is that is to be given to the one that fits this position. Because not anybody can fit that position. So the people of wisdom and knowledge and so on, they would give it to the one that fits, not in corruption. We're not talking about corruption. We're talking to be given as a responsibility and a burden to the one that fits. And then the people will be busy with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give him the means to be a leader or established or so, then he should use his means to whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, even in matters of da'wah. Someone can teach people Quran. Teach Quran, mashallah. Why does he have to give fatwas, for example? Whatever a person knows, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him, then he can use this for a great reason, and he can be in the highest level. Imam Malik, rahimahullah, Abdullah al-Umari, one of the Imam of the Hadith too, but he was very busy in ibadah and worship. When he said to Imam Malik, giving him advice that he need to do less ta'aleem and teaching to the people and do more ibadah. Of course, the ibadah of Imam Malik, if we talk about it, it's an amazing one. But he was giving so much to teach the people. So he was advising him to give more time to the ibadah, the optional acts of worship and so on. And Imam Malik, because of his knowledge and fiqh, he sent back to him and he said to him, إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَسَّمَ الْأَعْمَالِ كَمَا قَسَّمَ الْأَرْزَاقِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distributed actions the same way He distributed rizq, provisions. So some people, they were given the provision or the deeds of salah, so they do much salah. This is optional acts of worship. Some have been given siyam, fasting. Some have been given the ability to learn and to teach others. Right? So a person should see exactly what he can do after establishing the obligations and staying away from haram, and do the minimum of all of these optional acts of worship. He still pray at night and fast, maybe Monday, Thursdays, do things. But then what is the thing that he can do the best? He has the ability to learn the deen. Don't waste his life. Learn the deen. He has the ability to teach others, and he should learn and teach. He has the ability to make more salah, and so on. So he said to him, وَمَا أَرَى أَنَّ الَّذِي أَنَا فِيهِ بِأَفْضَلَ مِمَّا أَنْتَ فِيهِ. And I don't see myself doing something more virtuous than you. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created things. So to have the ability for the leader to direct people to what is benefiting to them, this is one of the most important things of tarbiyah that we lack so much. That you would find even schools, everybody is learning the same thing, even boys and girls. They are being raised to be the same thing. All of them, regardless, boys are different than girls. What you want from this girl to grow up to be what? And what these boys are, and what talents he can see. Person is able to see this person has a talent that we need to make it better and to make it stronger and can benefit the ummah from. This is lacking with all of these masses of education and all kinds of things like this. But anyway, so he said for them to be used, that they would help. توني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال أتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا. Give me, this is the instructions and this is the knowledge and the ability. Give me pieces. Zubar al-Hadid is the big blocks of iron. That means the metal is very strong here. Big pieces of iron. Then when he had filled up the gap between the two mountain cliffs, can you imagine iron filling the gap that will be behind it, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, that these people, as it's mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of the Shafa'a, the long one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Adam alayhi salam to akhrij ba'th al-nar, to bring the people of the hellfire. And you would ask, what are the people of the hellfire? He said, من كل 1999 في النار وواحد في الجنة. From every 1,999 in the hellfire and one in Jannah. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they heard this was a very terrifying thing for them. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said, 999 from Ya'juj and Ma'juj and one of you. And of course in other narrations from the other nations. So this is how the ratio that you see most of the human beings are into their own destruction. So Ya'juj and Ma'juj are huge numbers that, as when the signs of the hour and the hadith mentioned, Shaykh Muslim and others, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would will for them to come out, there will be so much that they will come into the lake of Tabariya, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and there's so much the beginning of the army will pass, or the beginning of Ya'juj and Ma'juj pass by it. By the time the end of them will get into the lake, because they were drinking from it, it will dry up. They will drink the whole lake of Tabariya, right? And the last of the people would say, there used to be a lake here, right? So there are so much in number. So to fill this gap with iron, right? This is, I don't know if there's anything on earth today have this. So and then حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين, till it made it straight between the two blocks here. قال انفخوا, between the two mountain cliffs. قال انفخوا, blow. انفخوا, of course, not with their mouth, right? Because it's not going to work to blow with your mouth. That means he had فأتبع سببا, right? Remembering that he had means, right? Whether it's machineries, whatever. I'm not saying this, I'm just saying that he had means to establish, to do whatever he wanted by the will of Allah. So they blew on it till when he had made it red as fire. This is how the steel, that means it's a very high temperature. We know the temperature of the steel when it melts, it's something very high with the furnaces that they have. He said, قال آتوني أفرغ علي قطرة. He said to them, bring me molten copper to pour over it. نحاس. So to pour molten copper on it, and that made it the combination of this iron and copper to make it very, very tough and very strong. فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. So they, meaning Ya'juj and Ma'juj, were made powerless to scale it or dig through it. And there is ista'u and istata', right? And it was mentioned also in the story of Musa and Al-Khaf. Both means the same thing, but linguistically, as the ulama, they say ziyadatun fil mabna, ziyadatun fil ma'na. When the word has more letters or more shadda and not, that means it has more meaning to it than the other word. So the one, فَمَا اسْطَاعُوا أَن يَظْهَرُوا, they were not able to scale it, right? There is no way for them. So they were hopeless in this. وَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا لَهُ نَقْبًا, and they cannot dig it. One is stronger, right? So to dig it, right, it's far more difficult. How can they go through this very strong place? They are not able to do that. قال هذا رحمة من ربي. He said, he said, this is a mercy from my Lord. Again, referring the goodness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not saying I'm a powerful man. The power did not make him forget about the mercy of Allah and the power of Allah, that everything is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Different than Sahib al-Jannatayn. This is the righteous king now that he has the authority and he has the means, and he's not being forgetful. Because usually these things makes a person a tyrant, makes him away from the orders of Allah. But he humbled himself. This is Rahmatum min Rabbi. And if you go to see Rabbi, how many times it's mentioned here, right? You would find it's mentioned more than one. قال لو مكنني فيه ربي, what my Lord made me or gave me the ability. And here, قال هذا رحمة من ربي, this is the mercy from my Rabb, from my Lord. فإذا جاء وعد ربي, so if the promise of my Lord, my Rabb came, جعله دكا, he would bring it down to the ground, meaning this barrier. وكان وعد ربي حقا, and the promise of my Lord is ever true. And this is where the Prophet ﷺ, and in Surah Al-Anbiya also it's mentioned, that the time will come every day, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they are trying to come out of their place, and they will dig every day till when a space that small as the Prophet ﷺ pointed with his index finger and the forefinger, that they open and they will say will come in the next day, but they don't say inshallah. Inshallah is mentioned in the surah more than one place. But they don't say inshallah, they come the next day, it's back again the way it was before, till the day would come, one of them, or they would say inshallah, they'll come back and they would find it there. This is the day where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will permit for the barrier to be destroyed. It's all by the power of Allah. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, again, people they say it was the Russians, it was this, it was that. All of this is not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is able of all things. How can satellites and all of these would not show them? Again, if a person reads the surah, he would never ask these questions. Right? If you really reflect upon the surah, why would people ask these questions? Because they did reflect upon the surah. If you've been with us and reflecting all of this, when a person thinks these ways or these things, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of all things. Is it difficult for them to be hidden away? They are right there. Like if a person is sitting right here, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will for me not to see him, will I be able to see him? I won't see him. This is an ayah from Allah. This is a sign from Allah. So it doesn't have to follow what we know of the signs of this dunya and the physical means and so on. This is beyond our power because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is able to do all things. So when the time will come, then they will come out, which is one of the signs of the hour. They will come out at the time of Isa alayhi salam. And Isa alayhi salam and his people will be surrounded in the mountain, and they will be so terrified because of them that, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that Ra's al-Thawb, or the head of the bull, will be more value to Isa alayhi salam and his people than the whole dunya, because they will be sieged by the people of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and their destruction will be, nobody will fight them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to Isa alayhi salam once he killed the Masih al-Dajjal, the Antichrist and so on, Isa alayhi salam will be told, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him that the Ya'juj and Ma'juj came out, قَوْمٌ لَا يَدَانِ أَحَدٍ لِقِتَالِهِمْ. Nobody has power and means to fight them. That means no fight. Nobody will fight Ya'juj and Ma'juj. No one can. Even Isa alayhi salam and his people. So that's why they will be on the mountain. And then this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send Al-Kahf, which is a worm that affects the goats and the camels into their nose. This is how something dirty, something, a small worm would affect their nose, and all of them, they will die instantly. Right? And then their bodies will be filling the earth, that when Isa alayhi salam come down and they see this and the natan and the bad smell and the rotten bodies, they would not be able to live like this, and they would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send birds with the long necks like the camels, and it would take these bodies, and then rain comes down to wash the earth. So this is in the Hadith in Sahih Muslim in the chapter of Al-Fitan, if someone wants to refer back to this. And basically, the last story, as we heard, it's a matter of authority, matters of means to be established, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the Qarnayn. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us learn and benefit from all of these stories, and to protect us from all of these types of fitan, and to take this as means for us to see things in the right way, not to be deceived, and to be patient with the orders of Allah, because whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed, it will happen. But people need to take the means, the permissible means, the means that they're in their capacity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help them and will reward them for their action. Apologize, I took too much of your time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our deeds. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhanahu wa ta'ala.